Skulduggery Pleasant, Chapter 17. A Fabulous Rescue Indeed. The rescue team stood by the side of the road and looked up at the wall surrounding Sir Pine's land. It was maybe 3 times as tall as Stephanie. Beyond it lay woodland, and beyond that, the castle. It occurred to Stephanie that if they didn't get Skulduggery back, it was all over. Sir Pine would get the scepter, and the faceless ones would return. The fate of the entire planet rested on the shoulders of a skeleton and on the 5 people sent to rescue him. What if we do go up against the scepter? Stephanie asked, fighting to keep the dread out of her voice. She had to remain strong. She couldn't let them see that she was just an ordinary 12-year-old. What if we can't just get in and get out without anyone noticing? Do we have a plan if we have to face him? Oh, Bethany said, considering it. No, not really. I'm going to try and cut him with my sword, Simon said helpfully. Right, excellent. What about guards? Do you think they'll be expecting us? Sir Pine is used to the elders taking forever to make their calm, thought-out decisions, Galley said. So he won't be expecting anything as amazingly reckless and rash as this. I'll teach him to underestimate stupid people. All right, then. Just wanted to make sure we thought of everything. All right, let's go. Without a word, the cleavers ran forward and jumped, legs tucked underneath them, cleared the top of the wall, and disappeared from view. Show-offs, Ghastly muttered, sweeping both hands down by his sides. A gust of wind lifted him and swung him up towards the wall, where he grabbed on and pulled himself to the top. Tanith turned to Stephanie. Want a boost? If you wouldn't mind. Tanith crouched, interlocking her fingers, and Stephanie put one foot into her hands. On the count of 3, Stephanie shot upward. Tanith was stronger than she looked. Stephanie had no trouble catching the edge of the wall. Ghastly helped her up, dropped down the other side, and turned to wait for her. She let herself hang there and then released her grip, and her boots crunched onto dried leaves and brittle twigs. A moment later, Tanith landed beside her. The woodland was thick, and they moved deeper into it. It became darker. The sun had difficulty filtering through the trees, and it was cold enough to make Stephanie grateful for her coat. The cleavers didn't want to make a sound as they moved. The woodlands were quiet, quieter than it had any right to be. No birds sang, nothing rustled in the undergrowth. It gave her an eerie sensation. They reached the line of trees at the rear of the castle and ducked down. A small army of hollow men patrolled the grounds. Oh, joy. How are we going to beat them? We need a diversion. Any suggestions? Chance didn't answer, but after a moment she looked at the cleavers. Ghastly understood immediately. There are too many. Chance's tone was flat but firm. We don't have a choice. The cleavers tilted their hands towards her, and after a moment they nodded. They stole back among the trees and were gone. Stephanie watched with Tanith and Ghastly. They won't be able to hold them off long. Long enough for us to speak in. That's not what I meant. You just sent them to their deaths. She didn't look at him. They'll do their jobs, we'll do ours. Do you want your friend back or not? Ghastly didn't answer. Look, Stephanie said. The hollow men were moving fast, moving out of their field of vision. Let's go. They broke the trees, sprinting across the wide open space towards the castle. Stephanie glanced to her right as she ran. The cleavers standing back to back in the distance as the hollow men closed in. They reached the castle. Tanith placed her head flat on the rock, twisted her wrist. Stephanie heard the lock break beneath the door, and Tanith pushed it open slowly. They crept in, then closed the door behind them. They kept it to the outer corridors, staying away from the cold heart of the castle. They found a stairway leading down, and Tanith went first, sword in her right hand and scabbard in her left. Stephanie followed a few paces behind, and Ghastly came last. They reached the basement, although Stephanie thought that calling it a dungeon would probably be more accurate. Tanith held up her hand, and they stopped and watched a hollow man clump ahead of them and out of sight. They made their way forward. Tanith approached the first heavy iron door and put her ear against it. After a moment, she pushed it open. The hinges groaned in protest, but the room was empty. Ghastly went into the next door, listened, and opened. Again, it was empty. Tanith glanced at Ghastly, and they shared a look, and Stephanie knew what it was about. We should split up? No way. If we waste time, the hollow men will be back outside the door, and we won't be able to get away. Then you come with me, Ghastly whispered. Stephanie shook her head. I'll be fine. I'll listen at the doors. If I hear anything, I'll get you. If I meet a bad guy, you can be pretty sure you know about it. We don't have a choice. They looked at her, but didn't argue. Tanith went to the next door. Ghastly hurried down the length of the corridor, and Stephanie turned back around a corner. They came to another row of iron doors and listened intently at each one. She followed a maze of corridors where they took her. She found herself breathing through her mouth and tasted the foulness of the air on the back of her throat. There were puddles here, stagnant pools of water on the uneven stone floor. The doors were no longer made of iron, but of rotting wood. The flickering of the torches and brackets made shadows dance on the walls. She saw someone moving ahead and was about to duck back when she recognized Ghastly. He waved to her and she waved back, and then started checking the doors closest to her. They were working their way towards each door when Stephanie came to the door and heard a low whistling. She frowned. Could Skulduggery whistle? He could talk, without lips or breath. But so she could see a reason why he would be able to whistle. She didn't recognize the tune, however. She motioned to Ghastly, and he crept forward. After listening a moment, he nodded. That's the girl from Banana, he whispered. That's him. He held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1, and they burst into the room. Skulduggery looked at them and stopped whistling. Oh, hello. I know where the key to the caves is. Stephanie closed the door as Ghastly hurried around behind him, stopping to examine the shackles. Quality workmanship. Thought you'd appreciate it. There's a bending spell woven into the metal. Nice. It'll take me a moment. I'm not going anywhere. Are you okay? I've been treating well, he answered with a nod. Apart from all the torture, he's given me time to think, actually. I know where the key is. So you said. Ghastly slid and the shackles fell. Skulduggery got to his feet. Is Meritorious here? He's telling the other elders what's going on. Ah, so you're doing this on your own? Dan Flo is here, but basically, yes. Skulduggery shrugged. I must admit it, it's going rather fabulously so far. The key? You didn't tell Serpent where it is, did you? I couldn't even if I wanted to. Just worked it out a few minutes ago. Simple, really. It was right in front of us. We can talk about this later. We have to go. Will there be fighting? I hope not. I'm in the mood for some fighting. If there is, Stephanie said, handing him his gun. Here's something you can use. Ah, bless off, mister. Do you have bullets? No. Skulduggery paused. Excellent, he said, and tucked the gun away. Let's go, Ghastly said, and stepped out of the door. Stephanie and Skulduggery followed back, and they hurried up the corridor and turned the corner. A group of hollow men froze in mid-step and regarded them vacantly. Time stood still. Yes, Skulduggery said, this is a very fabulous rescue indeed. The hollow men came at him, and Skulduggery and Ghastly went into action. Skulduggery worked with elbows and knees, wrist locks, and arm locks. Ghastly deftly wove in around the attacks, firing punches at whoever got close. Beyond the silent hollow men, Stephanie saw Tannis sprinting forward. She ran up the wall and across the ceiling and continued running upside down. Stephanie stared. She didn't know Tannis could do that. From the ceiling, Tannis joined the attack, swinging the sword and slicing through the tops of heads. Within a matter of moments, the hollow men were reduced to tatters and a foul smell. Tannis jumped down, flipping to land on her feet. There are more coming. We should probably leave. She reached the stairs without encountering any more opposition. But they were running for the exit. 2 massive doors were kicked open ahead, and the hollow men reinforcements arrived. Skulduggery and Ghastly stepped up, clicking their fingers and hurling fireballs at the ground. Stephanie watched their hands move, manipulating the flames until there was a wall of fire keeping the hollow men back. Tannis turned to Stephanie. Coat. What? Without giving any explanation, Tannis gripped Stephanie's collar and pulled the coat off, then ran for the window, covering her head with the coat, and jumped. She crashed through in an explosion of glass. Oh. She ran over, climbing through the window as Tannis got to her feet. Thanks, Tannis said, handing her back the coat. Watch out! Stephanie dodged to one side as Ghastly and Skulduggery dived through the window. Ghastly lower down, Skulduggery above him, like 2 lunatic acrobats. They hit the grass and rolled and came up at the same time. Flee, Skulduggery said. As they ran for the trees, Stephanie saw one of the cleavers who had accompanied them. Judging from the tattered people strewn around him, the cleavers had obviously put up an amazing fight. But the sheer numbers of hollow men had proven too much. He lay dead in the grass. She saw no sign of the other one. And then there were the trees, and not slowing down, and hollow men were crashing through the undergrowth after them. Ghastly reached the wall first, swept his hand beneath him, and let the air lift him over the wall. Tannis just kept running. Right before she was about to smack straight into the wall, she gave a little jump, and she was running up the wall. Before Stephanie could ask Skulduggery for a boost, his arm wrapped around her waist, and she found herself rushing upward, the wind in her ears, and the top of the wall passing beneath her feet. They landed on the other side with such ease and gentleness that Stephanie almost laughed despite herself. They got into the van, and Ghastly turned the key and pulled onto the road, and they left the castle behind them.